He stared at the crumpled $50 bill in his palm like it was his last lifeline. Maybe because in a way it was. Jack Miller, a single dad of two, hadn't been on a date in almost 7 years, not since his wife Claire passed away. Tonight wasn't about romance. It was about trying to feel human again, trying to remind himself that he wasn't just dad or the guy struggling with bills. He was still a man who could hope, who could laugh, who could, if the stars aligned, fall in love again. He sat in the small-town steakhouse, nerves buzzing. He'd picked this place because it looked fancy but had a hidden section on the menu, weekday specials that offered meals for $24.99, enough for 2 plates and a tip if he drank only water. He checked his phone again, no new messages. His blind date, arranged through a friend, was supposed to arrive at 7000. It was now 7012. He tried to ignore the well-dressed crowd around him, but his eyes couldn't help catching on the table just across the room. A man in a tailored navy suit, late 40s, silver hair, and the kind of confidence that money wears naturally, sat alone. The man wasn't eating, just observing, quiet, sharp, curious. Jack straightened his thrift store blazer and exhaled. "Come on, Emily," he muttered. "Don't bail on me." The waiter approached, polite smile hiding subtle impatience. "Would you like to order, sir?" Maybe just water for now." The waiter nodded and left, and Jack's fingers clenched tighter around that $50 bill. Then she walked in, Emily, or at least he hoped so. She wore a simple green dress and looked like someone who didn't belong in fancy places either. When she saw him, she smiled shyly and waved. Relief washed over Jack. He stood quickly, almost knocking over his glass. Their conversation started awkwardly. Two people trying too hard to make things right, yet failing to ignore the heaviness of their realities. Emily talked about her teaching job. Jack mentioned his kids. Then came the silence, that uncomfortable space between stories where truth often hides. "I almost didn't come," she admitted, eyes downcast. "I was scared this would feel forced, but you seem kind." He smiled faintly. "Kin's about all I've got left to offer." At the table across the room, the man in the navy suit continued to watch, discreetly. His name was Daniel Cross, founder and CEO of a major tech company. To the world, he was a millionaire, a genius, a man who'd conquered everything. But at that moment, he was just a lonely soul noticing another lonely soul, trying to find light in the dark. He couldn't explain why he kept watching. Maybe it was the way Jack's eyes softened every time he mentioned his kids, or how even in nervousness Jack listened with sincerity. There was something rare in that, authenticity. Then the check came. Jack hesitated. The meal had gone slightly over. The dessert Emily had ordered pushed the total to $56.40. He didn't have enough for both the check and gas to get home. Panic bloomed silently across his chest. He tried to mask it with a smile, reaching for his wallet. But before he could speak, the waiter returned with a strange look. "Sir, your bill has been taken care of." Jack blinked. What?" "The gentleman at that table," the waiter nodded toward Daniel. "He said to tell you, enjoy your evening. The world needs more men like you." Jack turned to look, stunned, but Daniel was already standing to leave. Their eyes met for only a second, but it was enough. A quiet nod passed between them. A silent exchange of understanding between two men who'd both known loss, loneliness, and the power of small kindnesses. When Emily asked who that was, Jack shook his head slowly. "Someone who must have seen something in me I can't see myself." That night, when he dropped Emily off and drove home to his kids, Jack couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The kindness, the generosity, the quiet respect in a stranger's gaze. He tucked that feeling deep in his heart like a promise that no matter how hard things got, he'd pay that goodness forward someday. Months passed. Jack and Emily started seeing each other more often. She met his kids, helped with homework, shared laughter that made the small apartment feel less empty. Things were looking up, slowly, genuinely, but fate wasn't done testing him. His youngest, Lily, fell ill, nothing life-threatening at first, just constant fatigue. The tests dragged on for weeks, and the medical bills piled up faster than his paychecks. He took extra shifts at the auto shop, sold his old guitar, even skipped meals so the kids could eat better. The $50 man was running on fumes again. One rainy night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Jack sat at the kitchen table with a stack of unpaid bills and his head in his hands. That's when his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "Mr. Miller, this is Daniel Cross. We met, sort of, at the steakhouse a while ago. I may have an opportunity for you. Call me if you're interested." Jack's heart thumped. The Millionaire CEO, the man who'd paid for his dinner months ago. He hesitated. "Was this real?" he called. Daniel's calm, confident voice came through the line. "Jack, I hope I'm not intruding. I couldn't forget that night. You reminded me of myself when I started out, hungry, desperate, but good-hearted. I'm opening a new community initiative to help underprivileged families and single parents. I need someone grounded, someone real to run it. I think that's you." Jack was silent, breath caught between disbelief and hope. "I can't offer you millions," Daniel added, "but I can offer you a new start, a stable job, benefits, and a purpose that matters." Tears welled in Jack's eyes as he whispered, "You have no idea what this means." Daniel smiled on the other end. "Actually, I think I do." A year later, Jack stood on a stage at a local community event, now the director of the New Beginnings Foundation, a program helping struggling single parents get back on their feet. Daniel sat in the front row, proud and quiet. Jack spoke to the crowd, voice trembling. "A while back, I was a man with $50 to his name, praying for a break. That night, I met someone who reminded me that kindness isn't about how much you give. It's about seeing someone's worth when they've forgotten it themselves." He paused, glancing at Daniel, then smiled. "And now I get to do the same for others. So if you're struggling, if you think you're invisible, remember, someone's watching. Someone who believes in you even when you don't." The room erupted in applause, but what lingered was the silence afterward, the kind that wraps around your heart like hope. Because sometimes it only takes $50, one act of kindness, and a stranger's faith to change everything. And that night, as Jack hugged his kids, Daniel watched from afar, smiling, knowing he'd just witnessed a man rise from rock bottom to become the light for others. A single dad, $50, and a moment that turned strangers into destiny.